Hello, and thank you all for attending today. My name is Nicole Jarvis. I'm the Senior Manager of Programs at Cancer and Careers, and I'll be the host for tonight's webinar. Now, before we begin, just a few housekeeping items related to accreditation. Today's webinar is accredited for CEUs by ANCC, NASW, the New York State Education Department's State Board for Social Work, the California Board of Registered Nursing, and the Society for Human Resource Management. If you plan on receiving continuing education credit for this program or a general certificate, please proceed with the following steps. First, you must log in individually. Participants who listen in on someone else's line will not receive credit. And then you must also complete and submit the evaluation and the post-test, as well as receive a passing grade on the post-test. Following today's session, you'll receive an email with all of this information. That email will be sent by 5 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, Thursday, May 6th. And certificates will then be emailed within 4 to 6 weeks if qualified. Also, please note that the planners and presenters for this program have not disclosed any pertinent financial relationships or conflicts of interest, and that no commercial support was provided for this program. Now, thanks in part to direct support from Genentech, HSN, and QVC, Cancer and Careers is able to offer this 7th year of the Balancing Work and Cancer webinar series. This program was created to provide patients and survivors, as well as their care teams and employers, with concise, targeted information around work-related issues that arise after a cancer diagnosis. Additionally, we'd like to recognize Cancer and Careers year-round sponsors who support all of our core programming and also allow us to continue providing all resources and our services free of charge. So nowadays, building an effective profile on LinkedIn can be considered as crucial as crafting a good resume. It allows individuals to present a public professional image that they are in control of. We often hear from cancer survivors that after going through a cancer diagnosis and treatment, they may be inspired and ready for a change, or perhaps they're unable to continue the work that they were doing prior to their diagnosis. LinkedIn can help making finding a new job or career path easier. But remember that it's designed to not only help with job hunts, but also to manage your career identity and to also build it. In addition, for some people, it can also be a really great way to start reconnecting to the work world after time off for treatment and recovery. I understand that many of you might have questions today, so we'll have time for those at the end of the hour. All questions that you want answered should be entered into the Q&A box, which is located at the top or the bottom of your screen. Please don't ask questions for Julie in the chat box, as we won't be monitoring that. If you're joining us via the phone today, you can press *9, which will alert us all of your question. Now, to take us through this topic, I'm thrilled to introduce Julie Jansen. Julie's a speaker, trainer, coach, and author who's helped thousands of professionals find success and satisfaction at work, as well as finding work that's gratifying for them. She's written 2 books, but really most importantly to us, Julie's one of the original coaches at CAC, helping patients and survivors with their individual employment challenges. Additionally, Julie is the coach who does our resume review service. Following Julie's presentation today, as I mentioned, there will be time for you to ask questions, but for now, I want to turn it over to Julie to get us started. Julie?
Thanks, Nicole. I appreciate it. So let's start with what is LinkedIn exactly. It's interesting because LinkedIn there's a spectrum of people that say, I hate social media. I don't want to be on any social media, including LinkedIn. And then on the other end, there's the millions of people who use LinkedIn rather actively, and most people kind of fall in between. So just a quick overview of what LinkedIn actually is. It was launched in 2003. It was a small IT community for whatever reason, and to this day, I have no idea why. It is the world's largest, most dominant professional social network. It's strictly business, strictly professional. It's very different than Facebook. It's used, as Nicole just mentioned in her intro, it's used for networking. Employers post jobs. It's a great content channel. And at the end of the day, what it does is allows you as a member to create a simple profile of yourself and your professional experience and your education and make connections to each other. So let's look at some statistics. Right now, this minute, there are about 675 plus million monthly users. and 40% of these use LinkedIn daily. I am one of those 40%. There's about 61 million LinkedIn users who are senior level influencers, and 40 million who are actually in decision-making positions. Decision-making could be, running a business, and certainly influencing hiring, which is why many of you are, attending this webinar. And by the way, happy Cinco de Mayo day. We'll all be having our margaritas after this at the end of this. LinkedIn is the most used social media platform among especially very large companies, Fortune 500 companies, and about 30 million companies use LinkedIn actively. And I want to make a little note about this. When someone puts in their work experience when they're creating a profile and they list a company, LinkedIn will automatically generate a company page, or if the company happens to post a job. So there's actually 30 million use LinkedIn actively for recruiting and for other purposes, but there's 530 million companies on LinkedIn at this time. So now let's jump into how LinkedIn works. So one of the first things that a recruiter or someone in HR does is they tend to now, especially during and after the pandemic, they Google you to look and see what your social media activity is. More than 90%, 96%, and I'm vouching it's probably closer to 100, do use social media for recruiting. And LinkedIn is absolutely the first site that they view. So reasons that employers use LinkedIn to fill open positions. Well, it helps them to find candidates that they would never find in any other way. Like if they hired a recruiter to help fill a position, or if they asked their employees to refer people for jobs, they can proactively tap a huge candidate pool. Remember, I just mentioned there's 675 million users, not all of them active, of course, on LinkedIn. But even if someone isn't active and they have a profile, this employer can actually find them by searching for specific keywords. So it helps them reduce expensive fees and certainly lower recruiting costs overall. So let's talk about how to get started. And forgive me, you're all on varying levels of knowledge with LinkedIn, and I'm well aware of that. When we built this webinar, we really built it with the mindset of we're going to deal with beginners and people who are resistant to people who are, like in that 40% using it all the time. So it will, worst case, you walk away with a couple tips. Best case, you walk away going, okay, I have the confidence now to join LinkedIn. So anyway, the first no-brainer is you can jump on linkedin.com. The basic account is free. I'm almost always asked, do I need to become a premium user? The answer for me is no, for most of you. While a premium membership does enable you to send in-mail, and that's the LinkedIn term for sending a message to people you don't know, and it does give you complete access to people who view you, if you've seen that in your dashboard, unless you're in a situation where you're trying to generate client or customer leads. Premium business or sales navigator memberships would be the ones that make sense. But for most of you on this webinar, just use the basic free one. You create your profile. It's a very condensed picture of who you are, how the professional world sees you. And LinkedIn isn't that creative. So it's really fill in the blanks in the separate sections. And then all you have to do is confirm the email account. And this is a pet peeve of mine. Please, please, please put somewhere that's accessible what your sign-in email is. I do not recommend you use a company email, because when you leave your company, which is inevitable, then you're scrambling, if you haven't added an extra email address, to figuring out how you can access your profile, because you'll no longer have access to that company email that was your employer. So that's how to get started. And when you move on to a little more about that, the next thing is what LinkedIn is all about is adding connections. So so connections are crucial. It isn't about having thousands of connections. What LinkedIn does is it does lists how many connections you have, up to 500, and then it just says 500 plus connections. And you'll see in this webinar that I most of the time used my own LinkedIn profile as an example on the slides, if you are viewing the slides. But looking for connections, LinkedIn can prompt you to search for connections by crawling your email if you give them access, and that's up to you. Or you can opt to just add people individually, search for people you know, search for people in industries you're interested in, and add them. So that's how to get started. So this is a diagram of how LinkedIn works with connections. And people are called connections, not contacts. Your network is made of first degree, second degree, and third degree, and fellow members of any LinkedIn groups you might join. LinkedIn groups are just very specific groups. Like I'm a member of the resume writing LinkedIn group, one of them. So first degree connections are people you're directly connected to because you've accepted their invitation to connect, or they've accepted your invitation. So you'll see a first degree icon next to their name in search results and on their profile, and it's very easy to send a first connection a message on LinkedIn. Second degree connections are people who are connected to your first degree connection. So again, you'll see the little second degree icon next to their name in the search results and on their profile. You can send them an invitation by clicking the connect button on their profile page, or if you do want to use InMail, which again, I never do that, and it doesn't matter, you can send them an InMail. And then finally, the third degree, it used to be that you couldn't view third degree connections, but just very recently, LinkedIn changed it so it's possible to view third degree connections and send them an invitation to connect. That's like that hot off the presses just happened maybe a month and a half to 2 months ago. And then remember, I mentioned fellow members of your LinkedIn group. So those people are considered part of your network because they're a member of the same group. So it's easy to connect with them. Okay, so we're back to getting started in a way. So how do you connect with people on LinkedIn? Well, you can just look at profiles. Oh, I think I want to connect with Julie Jansen. She did that webinar on LinkedIn. So you just type in JULIEJANSEN, cancer and careers, because I have a thing about cancer and careers on my profile, and there I am. And you just send me an invite. And I always recommend a customized invitation if possible. You can also look at the search results page. There's something called Grow Your Network. And then what happens with LinkedIn is they start popping up people you may know, which is if you've given them permission to crawl your email. And then finally, you can look at an app, a mobile app on one of your phones or devices. So there's lots of ways to connect with people. The way I mostly connect is I look for people, and that it's a little bit slower, but it's a little bit more strategic as well. So this is, like Nicole said, LinkedIn is not just about looking for work, but I'm guessing many of you are here because that's of interest to you. So how do you find jobs using LinkedIn? Well, there's 3 ways. The first is there's a little feature called Let Recruiters Know You Are Open to Opportunities. And it's right in near your dashboard underneath your picture and your name. And we'll get to that in a minute. You just fill in this little survey. All it asks you is to fill in job titles that you're interested in, the geographic locations, whether you're looking for full-time, part-time, freelance, contract, remote. And for those of you who are always, asking questions about finding remote jobs. And then the other thing that you can do is you can set it up so that LinkedIn will email jobs to you on a regular basis that align with your keywords and your experience. So you can go into the settings and ask for email alerts. You can get weekly, monthly, jobs you may be interested in. And you can also search for a job on LinkedIn. And then finally, this is a new feature that LinkedIn added at the beginning of the pandemic last year. It's this little, it looks like a little frame, and it says hashtag open to work. And if you want to put that it goes on your headshot. So you've probably seen it if you looked at LinkedIn. There's people that have it like a little circle around their headshot. And that, I mean, I'm mixed about that, but it is a very obvious way of indicating that you're looking for a new job, so that's your option if you want to use that. So the reason I'm talking about the Help Center is because I believe that not only do you, of course, want to be aware of privacy settings, just as you would with any social media site. That's very important, and people tend to neglect that a little bit. The Help Center is very robust. So this is my profile and a snapshot of the Help Center. LinkedIn is constantly changing features, especially in the last year or so. And so it's a good idea to know how to access the Help Center. So what you do is, if you look at the top bar on your LinkedIn profile on your home page, it says me. It's a little me. See me? It's there on the top, me, my little headshot, thumbnail headshot. And then you just click on that, and the drop-down bar will show you the Help Center. And then moving on to another slide about the Help Center, there's lots of things that the Help Center will help you with, like how to change or add an email address. This is a big one, eliminating a duplicate account. LinkedIn used to make it extremely difficult to eliminate duplicate accounts. A lot of people have them, not realizing. And you had to call LinkedIn, believe it or not, to try to eliminate your duplicate account, and it would take weeks and weeks and sometimes months for my clients, I remember. But now there's a feature there where you can just merge your connections with two accounts and just delete one of the accounts. And usually you want to delete the one that's either the most recent one or that has the most connections. Okay, so now moving on to what LinkedIn, this is just a snapshot of my homepage. I just thought that would be helpful. There's me with, my headline, how many connections I have, and you can see that there's a section on what services. Now, I happen to be in my own business and have been for many years. You can see that little show recruiters you're open to work that I mentioned before. And then kind of tells you who people have viewed that are similar to you and that kind of a thing. So now let's go on to the profile strength meter. This seems silly, but it's like a little, LinkedIn calls it a profile strength meter because it's on the very right side of your profile, and it gauges how robust your profile is. Why is that important, you ask? Well, the strength of your profile will increase as you add content. So if you move and put your cursor over the circle in the box, you can see the next level of strength. The highest level is all-star, and LinkedIn's algorithms reward users with complete profiles. So what this means is, and this is the bottom line, what this means is that you are more likely to show up in search results from recruiters or people with a complete profile. So you do want to complete your profile as much as possible, and it doesn't take that long to do that. Okay, so now let's go into how to build your profile. Your headline. So I'm going to say this a lot during this webinar. LinkedIn is really about keywords, and I don't want to make, I know I'm loading you up with a lot of information, but it's keywords, keywords, keywords. And it's not about a creative writing exercise or telling everybody everything that you've ever done in your career. It's really about just descriptive keywords. And so your headline, it defaults to using your job title if you don't change it. And if you have a universally recognized title, like, let's see, I'm trying to think, social media manager. Okay, so pretty much every company has a social media manager. So, everybody knows what that is. So it might make sense to leave it as social media manager at Cancer and Careers. However, there's room for 240 characters. LinkedIn just increased that amount recently, like again, last year during the pandemic. And so why not customize your headline and maybe say social media manager at Cancer and Careers, and then dash SEO, comma, digital marketing, comma, something else. So I highly recommend that you customize it, because not only is it the first thing that people really see, but after they look at your photo, it's really also scanned, as part of the scanning that takes place. So that's your headline. And then we jump into your basic information. This is pretty straightforward. These are these fields that LinkedIn came up with. Why, I don't know. But they ask you about your country and your region, your postal code. You can't put in your location if you do not type in they call it postal code, but we call it a zip code, right? So, and then the industry thing is weird because it's required. You can't have a profile without having an industry. And unfortunately, you have to select from the list of industries that LinkedIn has. And you might imagine there's a lot of industries that they don't have. So it's frustrating for people who have worked in multiple industries, or they're open to working in a different industry. Like they don't want to work in, like I have a guy, he doesn't want to work in financial services anymore. He wants to work in technology. So he's going to put technology, but his experience has all been in financial services. Or if you're like in a moribund industry, an industry that's dying, you don't want to put that, in there. But you have to choose one. So, and then there's your photo. I get a lot of pushback on this one. Adding a photo. Yes, 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 it's a must. You do not need a professional headshot. You do not need to wear anything fancy. I mean, if you look at, some of the profiles there, your thumbnail headshot is like about yay big. So it doesn't matter. It's really, I just say white background. It's kind of shoulders up. Color is recommended. I don't usually recommend black and white. And there is an option to put a background behind your photo, which is nice. I just changed my background to a nice, my colors are sort of orange and similar to Cancer and Careers. And so I put a nice, pretty orange background, and I really like the way it looks. So that's your photo. Just don't argue, just get on there. And if it's not how, like if you've had treatment and you've lost, you've lost your hair and it's growing back, people will often say to me, well, but that's not what I usually look like. You can change your photo. Just put a photo that you're comfortable with. You don't want it to be 10 years old, but you want it to resemble you. So keywords, I'm going to stress this. Keywords are significant. What you want to do is there is a specific section, we'll talk about that in a moment, where you load it up with keywords. But you want to sprinkle relevant keywords throughout your LinkedIn profile. And the best way to know what those keywords are is just to look at job postings. And that's the same thing I do when I write people's resumes, is I ask them to send me 2 or 3 links to jobs they're interested in. And I just pull out the language, whether it's soft skills or technical skills, and just sprinkle them throughout, because as I mentioned when we started, keywords are the most important thing. Okay, so now we go to what LinkedIn calls your about section. So that's really the summary of who you are. So the summary of Nicole Jarvis describes what Nicole's background is. She writes that. That's about the closest it gets to a creative writing exercise on LinkedIn. It's a vital part of your presence. You actually have 2,600 characters. I am not suggesting use all of those characters, not at all. But the first couple sentences need to be pretty descriptive and get people interested in you. And what I do in the about section is I list specialties too, which are also keywords. So if you go to the next slide, a little bit more about it. These are some of the things to think about excuse me, when you're writing your about section. So you really want to be authentic, and it's marketing, but it's authenticity as well. So on brand with who you are. You want to be pretty interesting. It's not a regurgitation of part of your resume, unless you have a really interesting summary on your resume. You can use that, and I often do that with my clients. And just be concise, be comprehensive. And as I mentioned, list specialties, because my specialties would be like executive coaching, career coaching, resume writing, LinkedIn profile writing, board profile writing, training, consulting, coaching, that kind of thing. So it's just another opportunity for scanning to pick it up. So that's, and then the final thing is, the easiest way actually for all of LinkedIn is when I create and post LinkedIn profiles for people, which I do often, I have a Word document and I create it all in the Word document, similar to a job application. And I create it in Word and then I spell check it. And then I cut and paste it into LinkedIn, hit save, hit save, hit save. The biggest mistake people make is they put content on LinkedIn and then they forget to hit save, because LinkedIn kind of buries the save button, towards the bottom. Okay, so now this section called featured is very new. This is where you can add images, you can add video, PDFs, articles, presentations, website links. Not everybody, I don't have this on my LinkedIn profile, only because I have a very robust website with I just updated in December. And so I have all my video, I have all my articles, media, everything there. So I don't put it on LinkedIn, only because people go to my website. But if you're an employee, it's a good idea, like an award you won, a link to that, or a video of a project, and it's right up front. It's right on the top of your LinkedIn profile. So I really like this section a lot. I think it's nice, and it adds some nice dynamic color to your LinkedIn profile. Okay, and then there's a section on your profile, which I mentioned earlier, called your dashboard, and this is where your stats are. So nobody sees this but you. You're the only person. When someone gives me their sign-on information, I go on and I can see it, but nobody can see it. And what it is that you can see how many people have viewed your profile. So whenever I created this webinar, 169 people had viewed my profile that day. There were 70 search appearances for me. I post an article pretty much every couple days on LinkedIn. And like yesterday, I posted that I was doing this webinar, and it tells you how many people look at your post if you post. And again, you do not need to post, so you don't need to panic. It serves a purpose for certain people like me, but for others of you, it doesn't really matter. So it's just a nice way for you to kind of track things as far as statistics and activity. So, and speaking of activity, so this is mine again. These are posts that I made more recently, and you can see, people make comments or they react. Reactions are just like thumbs up or clap, or those kinds of things. So that's just if you do have any activity. Activity. Let me just think about this for a minute. Activity is. I think it's I know what the other part of activity is. It's changes that you make on your profile, but only, like, say you add a new job that you just started. People can only see that activity if you've changed your settings to say, let people see my changes on my LinkedIn profile. So that goes back to go to the Help Center and review that and figure out whether you want people to know anything. Because another very common question I get is, well, will my employer see if you've updated my LinkedIn profile, or if I've made changes? Will they know I'm looking for a job? And I say, well, you have to change your settings. And then also, it's not as if people are looking at your employer's looking at your profile every day. They're not. And so that would be the only way they would be able to see any updates, So there's a bit of paranoia still around LinkedIn, which I try to dispel on a regular basis. Okay, so now we look at the field that's your work experience. And this is an example of what you put in. And this is very boring. If for whatever reason, it leads with your title. And then it just added this a couple years ago. What kind of employment was it? Was it freelance? Was it contract? Was it full-time, part-time? And then your employer name. And if it's one of the 530 million companies on LinkedIn and they have a logo, it'll automatically populate once you type in your company name, it'll populate it with that logo, and then it just asks you for the location. So the next slide will show you, I think oh no, this is some other tips. This is really interesting. If you are unemployed, this is a suggestion that I find interesting, and I'm a little mixed about it, but I kind of like the idea too. So because you're unemployed and people are doing scans and looking for certain kinds of people, they say that it might be a good idea, LinkedIn says, if you include a current job entry. And so you would put like whatever your title was in your last job. So I seem to be focused on social media for some reason, but social media coordinator assistant. And then in the field that's reserved for a company name, you don't have a company name because you're unemployed. So you would put seeking a new opportunity. And that's just a way for you to come up when someone's searching for a social media coordinator and assistant. Okay, and then this is my work experience. I've been in my own business a million years. I'm a senior contract consultant to this other company called Partners International. Little description of what I do, and people, people at least. I don't recommend adding every single job you've ever had to experience. It's not relevant. And what happens with LinkedIn is it only shows the first couple jobs that you've had, and then someone has to click and open up all the rest of the jobs. It says see more experience. Someone's not going to go that far back on LinkedIn. They might do it on your resume, but they're not going to do it on LinkedIn. So just put the 2, 3, 4 most relevant jobs, the recent jobs rather. Okay, so now this section, skills and endorsements. This is important. I don't know why, but you can only put 50 in here. So when I update someone's profile, I load it up with 50. And it could be soft skills. It could be more likely, sort of technical skills. These are the keywords that I keep mentioning that will help you be found by recruiters and hiring managers. And if you look at this slide, you can see this little thing that says take skill quiz. And that is, LinkedIn added this back in 2017, I think, where it's mostly technical skills like coding and or Excel or things like that. And you can actually take a little quiz. And then what happens is it'll assess your competency with this is competency level, the specific skill, and any results are totally kept private to you. So it doesn't put your competency level on LinkedIn. And if you pass in the 70th percentile or above, you have the option to add verified skill badge to your profile. I'm like, I don't know about that one, but, and it's just making you aware that exists. And it might be interesting just as an exercise for you to see what your perceived skill level is with whatever it is. So skills and endorsements, what happens with that section is when you type in a skill, LinkedIn, you start typing like, so let's take me, coaching, COA, and LinkedIn will automatically drop down a bunch of relevant keywords. If you use LinkedIn suggestions, which I highly recommend, then that skill is more likely to show up in searches. So do not make up keywords. It's not, again, not a creative writing exercise. Your contacts can endorse you for skills. So if someone's looking at your profile, LinkedIn will automatically say, would you like to endorse Julie Jansen for career coaching? And someone can opt to just say, yep, endorse. I really don't see the value of this, except that the way LinkedIn has it set up in skills and endorsements is that the skills that actually have the most endorsements will be listed first. Skills without endorsements will be displayed according to when they were added. But the funny thing about the skills and endorsements section is you can, well, let's go to the next slide and I'll show you. You can choose the top 3 keywords that people see. That is very important to me, because if I put in, let me think of something that I do that's not something I do, I'm going to make this up. Time management training, which I used to do. I don't do that anymore. So am I going to have time management training as one of my top 3 skills when I don't even do it? No. No, I'm going to have the top 3 things that I do, which in my case, pre-COVID was speaking. Hopefully that'll come back. And then, you know, career coaching, career and executive coaching, or resume writing. You want what do people think of when they think of you? And all you have to do is these little arrows. You click the ones that are in there in the top 3 down. You go down your list. You click the ones you want in the top 3. Boom, save. You're done. And it's easy to remove skills. So maybe there's things that, you know, maybe were important or relevant earlier in your career and they're still listed and you're like, this isn't important anymore. You can exit out and, you know, it'll tell you how many skills you have. So it'll tell you when you've reached the max of how many skills. Okay. And then this is kind of straightforward, your education. So you just populate that. And then moving on to the volunteer service is, here you can see I've been doing work with Cancer and Careers since 2007. Yikes. And so and then that, especially for those of you who have gaps, who, you know, stepped out because of treatment, or you haven't yet put your foot back in because of the pandemic, you know, and you're waiting to see what's happened, or you feel compromised or whatever. This section's really important. And I didn't load it up that much with my achievements. You know, I sort of kept it pretty straightforward. But if you feel funny or nervous because you have gaps on your resume, this is a good section to really fill in a more robust way, you know, more content, because people will look at it. So I like this section a lot. So then what LinkedIn has is they have all these things called accomplishments. You can add information to any of these. Some of these are really strange, like, well, not strange, but like how many people have patents? I mean, not that many people. So, you know, most people are going to leave this blank. Courses I find a little weird because, you know, it's like, I did someone's LinkedIn profile and she's taken about 50 disparate courses and with different universities. So she listed all of them. It's not a degree, but it's great. Honors and awards, of course, is nice. Test scores, I don't know about that one. You know, obviously if you speak other languages, that's a big plus. So it's nice to put that in. And organizations or organizations that you're involved with, that you're a member of. So most people are members of trade associations or whatever. Oh, and projects is like, I did someone's LinkedIn profile and she wanted these 3 projects at work. She was a lawyer, but she's wanting to move into a strategy operations job. And so she had 3, like kind of less lawyer, more strategic type projects. So she asked me to highlight those in the project section, and it ended up looking really nice and really popped, you know, which was great. Okay, so then recommendations, very important. You don't need 45 like you know I have here, but you do want current recommendations. This is like personality. This is what someone can read about you and get a little flavor for either your skills or your talents or your personality. This is a nice feature, and people don't use this enough. They tend to ignore it. You want to be reciprocal about giving recommendations as well as receiving. And so if you're requesting a recommendation, there's a couple different ways that you can do this. You can go to let's say it's a first degree connection, like a former manager of yours. You go to their profile and you just request a recommendation. And what happens with recommendations is someone has to write you a recommendation aligned with their particular work experience with you. So they have to click on, like, you know, worked with Julie at, well, I've been in my own business for so long. So, but at her own business. And then you can either suggest talking points to them and say, look, this is what I'd really love for you to stress. You could write it for them and send it to them and they can cut and paste it. Or if you trust them, you can have them write it themselves. And what happens is that it gets sent to you first for your approval. So nobody's going to be able to put a recommendation on without without your approval. And I have a funny story. One of the recommendations that's on here, a guy I coached, and he got a job, and he was delighted because he was having trouble getting a job, and he wrote a recommendation, and I was reading it with my husband at the time, and there was a big typo in it. And I said, oh, to my husband, geez, I don't know. I'm a little anal about this stuff, but do you think I should say anything to him? I feel so bad. He took the time to write it. And my husband said, nah, I'd let it go, And he goes, you know what he said? He said, you know what? It makes him look real and human. And I said, I kind of like that. So then the guy emailed me and he goes, oh my gosh, you posted it and it has a typo in it. And I said, let's just leave it. It's not a reflection on you. But I really, really encourage you to get recommendations, and you don't be intimidated by asking for them, because they just, as I said, they just add nice personality. Then this is interest. This is groups that you've joined on LinkedIn. And then this is who you're following. Why I'm following Barbara Corcoran, I have no idea, except that I like her, but but then when you see the button see all, it's probably about 4 months ago, just cleaned out a lot of groups that I wasn't participating in. I wasn't looking at the discussion forums, and I just said, I don't need to be a member of all these groups. So I just kind of narrowed it down. So I'm involved in more than what's listed here, but that's just kind of a fun thing. And people can see who you're following. So I would be thoughtful about who you're following or what you're following, but again, this is just business. This is not political or personal. Okay. And then I'm going to wrap this webinar up so that we can open up for questions with just a couple more slides of my suggestions. So I know as I said, I've given you a lot of information. LinkedIn is a living document, so it needs to be updated regularly. So what tends to happen for people who are not active on LinkedIn or don't know how to use it is they create a skeletal profile and they leave it alone. And it is apparent when you do that. So you don't have to keep making changes all the time. I certainly don't. But just updating once in a while is a nice thing to do. And then it helps you feel a little more comfortable with it. You do want to be selective about who you invite to connect with and who you accept invitations from. But at the same time, it's nice to accept invitations from someone, unless I actually had a guy, like, I don't know, a week ago, invite me to connect with him, and it seems kind of a little sleazy, and I was never seen that before. And I said, this isn't a dating site. And he said, well, I would like to get to know you. Well, I didn't accept that connection. Needless to say, that invitation. But normally that doesn't happen. And at the same time, don't just connect with people you've met in the past in person. I know you'll be meeting people again in person at some point, but look for people, especially if you're looking for a job. It's nice to do searches for people who are in jobs that are appealing to you, or that work for companies that you're interested in. And then finally, on this next slide, when people ask you for help, that's what LinkedIn is about. Please respond to them promptly. So when I reach out to someone and say, I've got a client, this happened just recently. She was looking for a second job, and she was applying for a job at a company, and she really wanted to find a contact there in addition to just doing the online application. And I had 2 or 3 people that I was connected to, and I reached out, and they were awesome and got back to me right away, and I was able to introduce them, which is nice. That's what LinkedIn is for. And then spend 15 to 20 minutes on LinkedIn and people say, doing what? Searching for people or companies, reading posts, participating in groups. You'd be amazed at how comfortable you can get if you just do that every day, but LinkedIn is integral to, especially if you're looking for a job or trying to change careers, it's very integral. And the more time you spend on it, just like anything else in life, the more comfortable you will feel. Okay, so now I'll turn it back over to Nicole.
Great, thank you so much, Julie. I know for everyone that was a lot of information to absorb, but that's the beauty of having the slides, is you can really work your way through them as you are updating your profile or creating a new one. hopefully those of you who didn't have one before today will be creating one, and it'll be very effective. So just before we head into the Q&A, I just wanted to point out a couple of Cancer and Careers resources that might be helpful for those of you who are job searching. As we mentioned, we have free career coaching on our website through our Ask a Career Coach message board. We also have additional webinars coming up, a few more with Julie as well, so hopefully you can join us for those. We have publications that are available either to download or to order in hard copy. And as mentioned a couple of times now, we do have a resume review service that can be super helpful when you are starting to think about what it is you want to do next and what kind of changes to your resume that might require. Some upcoming events that we have are some of our webinars, as I mentioned. Networking will be with Julie. We have one on enhancing your skills and career change. I also want to point out that we do have our national conference coming up in June. It will be virtual again this year. That'll be on Friday, June 25th. Registration is open now, and we certainly hope you can join us. We'll have some new topics and speakers, and it'll be a really great information-filled day. I'm just going to leave this up again, the slide with the requirements, while we go ahead and start with the Q&A. So I do see that we have a number of questions in the Q&A box. So Julie and I will go through those. We certainly have a good amount of time, so please feel free to ask whatever you guys want to know today, or if you need any clarification on what was discussed. So Julie, if it's okay with you, I'll start going through some of the questions that were submitted. Great. Okay, so this one is from Rebecca. If I set up my account as being available for work, will my employer see it? And is there a way to block my employer from seeing my activities regarding a job search? So, there was another one off of that. Am I able to block my employer from seeing some of the associations that I'm a part of? For example, if I'm a part of a resume group, would my employer be able to see this?
So there's two responses to this. You can't block anybody, but what you can do is change your privacy settings so people can only see minimal information. But the issue with that is then you're restricting yourself from recruiters or potential employers seeing you. So what I would recommend you do is, you certainly don't want to use the newest feature that I mentioned, which is the little photo frame that says open to work.
That might be a little too
No. So, but you can fill out the little thing in your dashboard that was over to the right of the dashboard that says let recruiters know you're open, that your employer cannot see that. So that but just, that's why I keep stressing, go through all of the privacy settings and just go through them methodically.
And in terms of associations, same kind.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, I think if you're that nervous about it, then just don't put it on your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, okay. This next question is from Marcy. She asked, would you upload your resume to your LinkedIn profile for potential employers to view?
So I don't know if you still can upload your resume. I have a feeling that, I'm not sure that feature still exists unless you have a premium membership. Okay. So, but I'm not a fan of uploading your resume, because if you think about it, you want them to go to your LinkedIn profile and get in touch with you, and then another opportunity for you to communicate and send your resume. You don't want to make it easy for people to download your resume. It's like kind of like sales, you do it in steps so that you keep inching towards the sale, so to speak. And so it's not something I recommend.
And ultimately your profile is a bit of a deconstructed resume anyways. You're saying a lot of the same things that you would, but even potentially having more.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have a lot of the content you have on your resume, so you want to kind of tantalize them a little bit and say, oh wow, Julie's, her background looks interesting, I'd love to see more. You don't want to just dump it all on LinkedIn.
For sure. Okay, we have another question. How do you present yourself if you've been working for the same company for many years? What would be a creative way to promote yourself in a way that shows your growth, especially when the company structure has not really changed that frequently?
So that's one of the exceptions that I make to putting achievements and more content in your work experience. So if you've been in, and I'm assuming that you may have been in progressive roles, so typically if someone's with a company for a long time, they've had different jobs. And so within those different jobs that you're listing in the work experience section, you can highlight a couple of the things you've done. The other thing is, when I gave this example during this webinar of the woman that asked me to pull out, she had been at Prudential for a really long time, most of her career, in fact. And so she asked me to pull out some of the projects she was proud of and pop them into the project section, and also to embed them in the about section, which is that section that where you can put 2,600 characters. Mm-hmm. So if you kind of put those things that make you pop a little bit in different sections on LinkedIn, that will work.
Okay. Great. This is a question from Clay, referring to slide number 30, which was your work experience. That's always hung me up as well. I'm on SSDI and I'm not looking for a job in the field where I was pre-diagnosis. Go along and get along. So I'm assuming he's referring to your example of putting in a job title in the.
Yes.
So you would recommend continuing to doing that? I know you said that you weren't a huge fan.
In his case, Clay's case, I would say yes, do that.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's all about scanning, right? It's all about searching. So searches. So if you've had a pretty long gap, I do think that that's a solution. The issue with putting in the headline, searching for blah, 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 it kind of makes it too desperate seeming. There's subtlety that you kind of need on LinkedIn a little bit. So that's why that strategy for someone with a longer gap, I think, is a good idea.
Okay. And they could also change their industry type and put in skills that might be more relevant. And
correct. That's very good point. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, great. This next question, if I was promoted to a higher position in the same company, should I list it separately or in the same list? And how to list this on a resume for different positions within the same company?
So always list every position when I've done LinkedIn profiles, I've done them where someone, like, they clump 7 years together and they had 3 different titles. I always break it out, always on LinkedIn and always on a resume, because it shows progression. And then you just have to put a little bit of content under each one, which is just a couple sentences, on LinkedIn. So it's really, progression is very important.
So if you were promoted to something, that was a senior level of what you were doing before, you would still describe what you were doing originally?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yep.
And so if that were the case, and maybe you feel like, I've had people say to me, well, my job was exactly the same, they just felt like they had to promote me, which happens. You just leave the junior one with no description, just the title and the dates, and then the senior one, then that's where you'll put the content of what your job entails. Yeah.
Okay. Great. This is sort of going off of that other one. This is from Leora. I want to change careers and my only experience in the field that I want to enter into is volunteer work. How should I list that on LinkedIn?
So you'll still put it in the volunteer section. What I would suggest you do is put it in the about section as well. And even add something in your headline about the industry where you volunteered and now you want to work. Because we see that a lot at Cancer and Careers, right, Nicole, with, I want to be a patient navigator. I want to help people who have had cancer since I've had the experience. And so there's more versatility than one thinks about where they can put things on LinkedIn. We tend to think, work experience, I can only put work experience, but you can be slightly creative about that.
For sure. And I just want to piggyback off of that, just to say that, if you do find yourself wanting to go into the cancer field after your cancer experience, you're going to want to put a lot of thought towards disclosure and how you want to describe why you're interested in it. Some people might want to use their cancer experience. Some people might not want to share that information. So obviously the disclosure aspect of it is something to really consider when you're talking about volunteer work also.
Right.
Okay, another question, this is from Anonymous. If your company restructured and your current position is now lower in the organizational structure than it used to be, what's the best way to present that? So an example is previous position as supervisor manager shifting to lead.
No, I mean, while it is true that searches are done using titles, I don't think that's a really big issue. I mean, I just think that you could put in parentheses, you could explain what the job is, or you could say, you know, restructuring, titles changed or something. You can explain it, but I feel like if you're explaining it, then, you know, it's something that you're probably more concerned about than a potential employer. I think it's just the content of your job, the fact that you've had that kind of title before. I mean, people leave companies and go to other companies and take a lower level job. That happens too, a lot, you know, and they did it for whatever reason. They wanted to work at that company, or they wanted a different industry experience or whatever. So I would say don't stress out about it. Just put whatever your title was.
Yeah, and I'm sure, you know, it's not often that people are really demoted versus being fired.
Right,
so
exactly.
you can always explain it in the way that there were restructuring things going on.
It's rare that people are demoted, to your point, you know, it really is.
Okay, this question's from Trisha. If you don't know people and have no connection with them, should you accept them? There seems to be no reason to connect with some people. Obviously, you gave the example of the guy recently who was trying to connect with you, but would you say that in a general sense you shouldn't be connecting with those people, or how would you talk
yeah,
about
that was just supposed to be a funny story, but really, yeah. So what I used to do when people would connect with me and I didn't know who they were or why were they connecting with me, I would say, oh, thanks for sending your invitation to connect. Is there, do you have any, you know, not reason, but is there a reason that you'd like to connect, or do we have something in common or something like that? What you really want to do is look at their profile, and you'll see that it shows who you have in common as connections. And if I see that someone wants to connect with me and we have 7 people in common as connections on LinkedIn, I'm like, I'm there, I'll connect with them. Because that's what LinkedIn is about, you know?
Right. And obviously understanding that connections can come in a lot of different forms. It doesn't have to necessarily just be the people in your industry and whatnot. Exactly. I know that I certainly get a lot of LinkedIn connections after these webinars. So, you know, I'm happy to accept you, even if I don't know you. But yeah, I think, you know, you want to think about the relevancy of who they are. Michelle is asking a clarifying question. She said, would you elaborate on the seeking a new opportunity in the employer section? Are you saying that you should use a job description of the role I'm seeking? Yeah, so generally you wouldn't put any kind of description. It's just putting in the title and the company name, so that will populate when someone's doing a search for that type of person. So you don't need to put a description. Okay, great. And I think we have time for one more. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. After an extensive career in corporate IT, but now an interest in also exploring healthcare IT and/or patient advocacy, how does one present that on LinkedIn? So again, that would be putting something in your about section. So what I've done for people is, you know, blah, 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 career in IT, doing whatever, and then seeking to pivot from to IT in the healthcare industry, you know, doing that. And as you mentioned, Nicole, going to the skills and endorsement section and putting in some relevant, even if it's just volunteer experience, putting in relevant keywords that to the new industry that you want to get into. Great. All right, so I want to be mindful of the time, especially since this is an evening webinar. So it is exactly 7 o'clock. So I want to just end here. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I know it's not easy in the evening, but we really appreciate having you here. As I mentioned, we will be sending the evaluation out. So if you could fill that out for us, it really does help us not only develop our programs, but also provide the information to sponsors, which allows us to continue giving free events. I really want to Thank you so much, Julie, for presenting this topic. I know a lot of people are a little wary of using this kind of technology and whatnot, so I know it's really helpful to have a step-by-step instruction to go along with it. So thank you. And again, if you guys have any more questions, I know that we didn't get to everyone's tonight, please send them to cancerandcareers@cew.org, and we'll be sure to get the answers to you either from our end or from Julie. Again, thank you, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Cinco de Mayo!
Cinco de Mayo, yes. Take care, everyone.